Thor Love and Thunder is finally out, and that means we finally get some more of a lot of people's favorite himbo. At this point, we all mostly know that MCU Thor is significantly funnier than his comic book counterpart, which does make him more digestible for the average viewer. These changes have been a gateway of sorts for me to get more and more into Thor, whose lore I had always been interested in, but whose comic personality seemed sort of boring? At least to me anyway. Love and Thunder once again has Hemsworth working alongside Taika Waititi. In case you don't remember, Waititi was the director behind Thor Ragnarok, which was universally praised. Waititi is definitely able to express his creativity and cinematic vision with this film. Not to mention that he was able to prank James Gunn with Tooth Grinder and Tooth Gnasher the Screaming Goats.
You shouldn't play with goats.
Thank you.
If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But these were one of the funnier bits, and now Gunn is gonna have to figure out what to do with them in Guardians 3. Love and Thunder loosely follows the God Butcher arc of the Marvel Comics. On the one hand, we're introduced to Gore the God Butcher, who is an alien from an unnamed planet. He seeks vengeance against all gods for allowing the entirety of his family to die, despite his loyalty to his god. The Necrosword bonds itself with Gore as he's on the verge of being murdered by his god. Gore uses the sword's power to kill the aforementioned god and then begins his conquest to kill all the gods. It's interesting to me that they don't bring up the fact that the Necrosword, also known as All Black, is a symbiote. You know, like Venom. It makes me wonder if Marvel doesn't want to dip its toes into the symbiotes quite yet, since they are still owned by Sony, and it kind of feels like they're sort of having some complications when working with them. Anyway, on the other hand, they've also introduced the Mighty Thor. To comic book readers, there's probably no mystery behind this character. Essentially, Jane Foster, who has developed stage 4 cancer, seeks out Mjolnir in hopes that it would restore her body. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I found it interesting how powerful Thor is painted at the beginning, displaying what seems to be arrogance similar to that of his first few appearances. We discover that this is just a bravado that he puts on to hide his emptiness. When he confronts Gore, we get to see the first time in the movie where he isn't overwhelming his enemies and actually is getting pushed back. It isn't until he rediscovers love that once again he has a reason to fight for and is able to overcome the odds with his companion's help. This movie is for sure an action flick, but it's also a love story, one where Thor rekindles an old flame. I have a tendency these days to not really watch trailers because I like going into theaters and being surprised by the movies, regardless of whether they're good or not. For example, I had no idea Gore was played by Christian Bale until the very end when I turned to look at my brother and asked, "Is that Christian Bale?" Honestly, like, I see it, but also it's kind of easy to miss if you didn't know he was playing Gore. Also, did you know that they changed Gore's appearance to make him look different from the comic books and look more humanoid because they didn't want people confusing him with Voldemort? Kind of silly that they have to go to those extents. I think I'm quite fortunate to not have been overcome by superhero overload. I still enjoy the movies and shows for the most part, especially since Marvel has kind of cracked the formula and are getting a little freaky with it now. I will admit that I do have a pet peeve with these movies. I just don't really like the pandering they do, especially when it gets too on the nose. I think it's one of those things that is better when they show it instead of saying it. Like, let it come up organically instead of forcing it, you know what I mean? I love all the representation, but when they make it too obvious, it kind of gives me the feeling that they're trying to tell us, here's the thing you guys wanted, now stop complaining. It's not something that would turn me off of these movies. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm part of the main demographic these movies are tailored to, so I'll probably keep watching them until I get sick and tired like some people are starting to. I will admit that I was a little worried going into this movie due to the reviews being left by critics, but again, people are starting to get tired of superheroes, and so many have come out that at this point there are so many things that have become cliche. Although I will admit that the movie was a little too crammed with story elements. They could have probably made 2 movies with all the plot lines and the movies would have had better pacing. Although I understand that they have a schedule to meet because of phase 4, but this strict schedule is kind of affecting the quality of the movies. Additionally, they probably could have cut out some of the jokes since they sort of cut the tension in some of the scenes, but I'm just kind of nitpicking at this point. If I had a place, it'd probably be second after Ragnarok, but still quite a bit ahead of Thor 1 and Dark World. It's a good movie and I'd give it a yay, especially if you haven't been overloaded by this genre. The movie is in theaters and you'll probably have to wait a few months before it comes to Blu-ray and to streaming sites, so go watch it if that's too far out for you. I am curious to know though, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want to hear me say more? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can catch all my future videos. As always, this has been Subtly Artistic. Peace out. Bye.